number 160472.
Bill number 160472, an ordinance amending Subcode PM of the Philadelphia Code, the Philadelphia Property Maintenance Code, by adding certain provisions related to drinking facilities in schools, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. The Councilwoman, I'm going to ask Councilwoman Gim if you have any opening statements with regards to your bill.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to thank this committee, and I want to thank the Department of Licenses and Inspections, as well as the School District of Philadelphia, for working together to ensure that our schools have water access, and that this small modification of the plumbing code will do a significant effort towards that. So we're excited to work together. We're excited to work with Allan and with the school district to ensure water access in schools, and thank you to the committee for taking that on.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I'll tell you that I am now, every time I walk into the school, counting water fountains, and now I have to look and inspect them too. But, thank you, Rebecca. You want to get started for the...
Good morning, Chairwoman Quiñones-Sánchez and members of the Committee on Licenses and Inspections. My name is Rebecca Swanson. I am the Planning Director for the Department of Licenses and Inspections. Today, I am here to provide testimony on Bill number 160472, which, if enacted, will amend the Philadelphia Property Maintenance Code to add requirements for drinking fountains in schools. The bill would add a requirement that buildings or portions of buildings that are used for educational occupancy must be equipped with one drinking fountain for every 100 students and at least one fountain on each floor of the building. The bill's definition of drinking fountain is a plumbing fixture that we all know as a traditional water fountain. The one fountain per 100 student ratio is consistent with the minimum fixture requirement for schools set forth in the Philadelphia Plumbing Code. Facilities would be permitted to substitute water dispensers for up to 50% of the required number of drinking fountains. The bill defines water dispenser as a plumbing fixture or freestanding apparatus that dispenses water into a cup or other vessel. The department supports this bill, and should it become law, we are prepared to enforce its provisions through our annual school building inspection program. L&I inspectors visit all public and charter schools on an annual basis, typically each summer, and thoroughly inspect for all property maintenance and fire code issues. The drinking fountain requirement will be part of this inspection going forward. Thank you for the opportunity to provide the department's testimony. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Can you just briefly talk about that summer inspection process and how it's coordinated with the district?
Of course, we do coordinate with the district. We do the summer because it's easier to do when the students aren't there, obviously. We go through each building, typically with a representative of the district or of that school. We go through very thoroughly, floor by floor. We point out any issues, and then notices of violation are issued just to explain the violations. Most of them typically are minor, and we just ask for a correction. If there's any serious violation, we obviously go back and ensure that that violation has been complied, and we partner with the school district to make sure all the issues in each building have been addressed. But typically, we try to complete that before school starts again in September.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Councilman Domb?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Good morning. Just a quick question. When L&I does these inspections, will they also be looking at the water quality?
We will not.
You will not. Is that hard to do if that was to be added down the road?
That's not an L&I function. That isn't part of our inspection process. It's not in the property maintenance code or the fire code or the other codes that we enforce.
But they're all going to be there. There's no way for them to also do that.
We don't have the ability to test water quality.
Okay.
That doesn't fall under the department's discretion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here to testify on this bill? Seeing none, thank you, Rebecca. Will the clerk read the title of the next bill?
Bill number 160462, an ordinance amending Subcode A, the Philadelphia Administrative Code, Subcode F, the Philadelphia Fire Code, and Subcode M, PM, the Philadelphia Property Maintenance Code of Title IV of the Philadelphia Code by adding certain provisions related to the maintenance and inspection of fire escapes, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill, Councilman Jones, for an opening comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of this committee. All too often, the big ticket items are what the newspapers report on, and, you know, we're measured by that work. It is the small ball, everyday, quality of life things that actually matter as much. When we start talking about public safety, we start talking about when this city was built, and my colleague knows more in one finger about real estate than I will ever know in my entire body. But as someone who has lived in developments that were designed one way and then matured a different way, sometimes those speculations aren't always up to date. Fire escapes being one. As we get a new urban, hipper group of folk moving into and discovering our inner city lifestyles, those kind of infrastructures, including fire escapes, weren't always built to be a party location, weren't always called upon to bear the kind of loads that they sometimes find themselves in. We as government have to step in to also evolve with the times, evolve in a way that keeps our citizens safe, even sometimes from themselves. And then to do that, this type of legislation is not designed to be a boil on the butt of progress, but it is designed to make sure that we keep up with that progress in a meaningful, responsible way. And I thank the members of this committee for considering this legislation.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. For the record, there was testimony, written testimony that has been submitted by the Pennsylvania Apartment Association, where they support the bill and make some additional recommendations that in the implementation of this bill, Allan and I will consider, and if any further tweaking is necessary, we come back to the drawing board. So with that, Rebecca, would you want to testify on behalf of Allan and I?
Sure. Good morning, Chairwoman Quiñones-Sánchez and members of the Committee on Licenses and Inspections. My name is Rebecca Swanson. I am the Planning Director for Allan. Today, I am here to provide testimony on Bill Number 160462, which, if enacted, will amend the Philadelphia Fire, Property Maintenance, and Administrative Codes to add requirements for the maintenance and inspection of fire escapes. The Department supports this bill and is prepared to enforce its provisions should it become law. Exterior fire escapes, which are a common feature in older multi-unit residential construction in some city neighborhoods, are designed to be a life-saving means of egress, and it is imperative that they are in safe condition for use by building residents in the event an emergency escape from the building is needed. This bill would help ensure that fire escapes and their landings, balconies, stairs, and ladders are consistently kept in a safe condition by requiring owners of properties that have exterior fire escapes to implement a rigorous fire escape inspection program. Specifically, the fire code would require property owners to retain a professional structural engineer to physically inspect the condition of the building's fire escapes every 5 years. As part of his or her inspection, the engineer would be required to conduct the appropriate tests on all components of the fire escape in order to detect any structural defects or deterioration, including a load test or analysis to determine whether the fire escape meets load requirements. In addition to the physical inspection, the engineer would also be required to review all relevant documents related to the maintenance of the fire escape, including records of previous repairs or inspections. At the conclusion of the inspection process, the engineer is to determine whether the fire escape is safe with a repair and maintenance program, or unsafe. The engineer is to issue a detailed written report to the building owner and to L&I with this finding and any recommendations. If a fire escape is classified as unsafe, the building owner would be required to take prompt remedial action, including immediately posting notice to building residents of the unsafe condition, providing interim fire safety measures, and commencing work to repair the fire escape within 10 days. Owners of buildings with exterior fire escapes would be required to submit their first inspection report to the department no later than July 1st, 2017, and then submit subsequent reports every 5 years from the date of the initial report. As it does with other self-reported inspections, the department will monitor the submission of the reports to ensure that building owners remain compliant and will take appropriate enforcement action against building owners who fail to adhere to the requirement. In addition to adding the inspection and reporting requirement to the fire code, the bill also amends the property maintenance code to require that building owners perform regular maintenance of fire escapes including snow and ice removal, and conduct periodic inspections of structural conditions in between the required engineer inspections. Altogether, the requirements of this bill will hold property owners accountable for the maintenance of fire escapes, just as they are responsible for the maintenance of all other components of their buildings. The department believes that requiring this level of inspection and reporting will help keep residents of buildings with fire escapes safe in the event that they must use the fire escape as a means of egress. Thank you for the opportunity to provide the department's testimony. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, is there anyone here to testify on this bill? Please come forward. Do you have written testimony?
It's for me to read off of.
Excuse me?
It's written for me to read off of.
Okay. Speak into the microphone, say your name for the record.
Good morning, members of City Council. My name is Nancy Chen. I'm here today to testify in support of the fire escape inspection bill that was introduced by Councilman Jones. 2.5 years ago, my roommates Albert and Laura O'Brien and I, excuse me. Thank you. The three of us were standing on the fire escape of our 4th floor apartment at 22nd and Locust Street when the fire escape collapsed and the three of us fell 40 feet to the ground. Albert was killed in the fall. All three of us were rushed to the emergency room, and I never saw him again. He was not yet 23 years old when this happened. He was less than a year out of college and had started working for J.P. Morgan and was certainly poised for a bright career with his whole life ahead of him. Laura and I, respectively 24 and 26 years of age at the time of the accident, both sustained serious injuries in the fall. We both broke our backs and both underwent spinal fusion and other surgical procedures. I had a severe pelvic fracture that necessitated the insertion of a metal screw in my hip. While I am very fortunate to have my full mental capacity and no debilitating handicap of my body, my injuries will certainly affect me the rest of my life, including my ability to successfully have children and have my own family, which I certainly hope to do one day. I'm here because the fire escape collapse was a tragic accident that none of us could have reasonably expected to occur. We were young people in our mid-20s living in a prosperous area of Center City, Philadelphia, with no conception that something like that would or could happen to us. How could something like that happen? With the memory of my roommate and friend Albert's first and foremost in my mind, I am here testifying today to urge you to move this bill forward and to take further actions in support of necessary reforms that will reduce the chance that this type of tragedy could happen again and end in a single instant such a promising life so full of potential. The fire escape collapse is connected in essence to other recent tragedies, including a similar collapse of the fire escape of the building where Monk's Restaurant is located at 15th and Locust that killed one man in August 2009, and the collapse of the Salvation Army building at 22nd and Market Streets that killed 6 and injured many others in June of 2013. These tragedies each occurred because of fatally inadequate oversight. Our city's building inspection codes, fire code enforcement, and legal requirements for landlords are not up to standard. I hope you will see that this bill is one step among many necessary reforms that must be made in order to make sure that Philadelphians and their families, not to mention firefighters and other emergency rescue personnel in the event of fighting a fire like the recent 4-alarm blaze at 2125 Locust Street, which happens to be across the street from my old apartment, are not at the risk of experiencing these needless tragedies. Landlords should be regulated by law to maintain crucial safety features of their properties, including their fire escapes. If there continues to be no legal requirement for fire escape maintenance and insufficient oversight, landlords will either not be aware of this vital responsibility or neglect this responsibility as part of an inclination to maximize their profit. The Department of Licenses and Inspections, in collaboration with the Philadelphia Fire Department, should be responsible for conducting regular inspections of fire escapes within its role of upholding essential standards of safe buildings in our city. I sincerely hope that you will not only pass this particular bill, but also make it a priority to bring about broader reforms that will make our city a safer and better place to live. Some of these essential reforms have been outlined by the Building Safety Oversight Board, chaired by Michael Nadal and Edward Dunham, appointed by Mayor Nutter, and continuing under Mayor Kenny, as I understand. Thank you for your time and all you do for the people of Philadelphia.
Thank you. Any questions on this panel? Councilman Jones?
This type of work is why we come to work. We can't go back in time and change your experience, but we can go forward in time to make sure that no one else has to go through this tragedy. There will always be accidents, but every time we see something that we as a municipality can correct, it is incumbent upon us to take the steps, to make the moves, to make the laws that make a difference. And thank you for coming forth and testifying and emphasizing that we should do our jobs. Thank you.
I wish you well in your recovery. I know that this is kind of a life situation for you in terms of your injuries, and we're very, very sorry, and we take public safety very seriously here. Thank you. This concludes, anyone else here to testify? This concludes the public hearing of the Committee on Licenses and Inspection. The committee will now go into its public meeting, having established quorum. I am going to ask Vice Chair Councilman Domb for a motion on Bill 160462 and 160472.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I move that Bill number 160462 and 160472 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, Bill number 160462 and 160472 will be reported out of this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit first reading at our next public session. Thank you very much.